The next topic of our talk is build and deploy generative AI experiences in VertexAI by Priyanka Gyawali. Wait, we lost it. Okay. Please welcome Priyanka Gyawali.
Thank you, Varuna, and it was an amazing presentation, Barsha, so hopefully everyone is energized and ready to learn more about AI and what else. So first of all, I would like to thank you all for giving your weekend, precious weekend, for today's presentation. I will give a bit of an intro about myself. So, yeah, I am Priyanka Gyawali. I work as a Chief Technology Officer at Uplift. Uplift is a SaaS-based recruitment platform where we basically have like 3 user type. Candidates looking for a job, big businesses wanting to hire developers as a candidate, and recruiters. So, giving a background about my experience, I started my career as a mobile app developer. So I used to do Android app development, and then I moved to technical consultant positions. And then now here the past couple of years, I've been working as a startup CTO, so working with teams building their product. So with Uplift as well, we are more inclined into how we can incorporate AI use case into our existing systems. So that's about me. I would like to know more about you all as well. So if you can please raise your hands, anyone who's a student or fresh graduates. Okay, yeah, that's expected number. So even though if you don't know much about AI, or even though you might find the title of the presentation a bit intimidating, but I just want to assure you that I'll cover with the basic concepts. So I'm not just gonna delve into VertexAI or the deployment process. We'll talk about the basic concepts of AI. What is Gen AI? Where does it fit? And yeah. How many of you are professional with 1+ years of experience? Nice. It's good to see some familiar faces here today. How about experience working with large language models, VertexAI? Okay, yeah, good. I'm happy to have a chat after this presentation as well, because I feel so many new developments are happening every other day. And I don't consider like they are already experts in this field. So we are just learning how we can utilize AI into our existing platforms. So it's so important to share the knowledge and the challenges that we have been facing while we work with AI. So yeah, happy to have a chat after this presentation as well. We'll cover some questions during the Q&A too. Now, talking about the agenda of today, as I mentioned, I'll start with some basic concepts. We'll talk about large language models and small language models. We'll talk about VertexAI, how we can build and deploy in VertexAI, and do a quick demo. We'll end with some takeaways and Q&As. So this image I've taken as a reference from Roger Martinez, who works at Google. And I've done a bit of an update because I want you all to understand the analogy of Gen AI. So one of the most common question is, what is AI and what is machine learning? How is that different? And what is generative AI? Like, where does generative AI fits in the AI landscape? So think of AI as a discipline of computer science, how we have like physics, chemistry, biology as a branch of science. So just like in biology, we have so many other sub-branches. Genetics could be one example here. Now, within genetics, we have genomics, which is kind of like a complex study of DNA, RNA. So similar to that concept, generative AI is something that deals with complex data structure and unstructured data. It's more about multiple neural networks working together to give us an output. So generative AI fits within deep learning. So within AI, we have machine learning. And within machine learning, we have like different kind of algorithms named as like supervised learning, unsupervised learning, deep learning. Generative AI is more inclined to deep learning, because in supervised learning, we have like, I think in the next slide, I can talk more about that. Because in supervised learning, we have labels attached to our data. Compared to with generative AI models, we don't necessarily need labels in the data. So through this image, you can tell, usually AI is differentiated into two types, like discriminative models and generative models. Discriminative models, they use labels and data as input, and it's about like learning the relationship between the data and the label in order to give an output. While with generative AI, it can be a combination of supervised, unsupervised learning, and combination of deep learning as well. So it works with unstructured content, and it learns from the pattern rather than like fixed relationship between data and labels. So it learns from the pattern in unstructured format, and it gives us a new content. So how you can just understand about what is a generative AI model and what is a predictive is based on the output that you see. So yeah, this image is really important, because as a developer, I want to understand, if I'm building an AI use case in my existing platform, I should know what kind of model should I go with, because that's the very first thing that you have to do when you work with AI, to understand what kind of model you need to choose, and then like rest of the process, we can go through that in few slides. So you can differentiate generative AI models and non-generative AI could be like a traditional machine learning algorithms. You might have noticed like AI and machine learning have been there for many years now, but like all of a sudden, we hear about AI, we hear about ChatGPT. So what triggered that, do you think? Prompt engineering. So what ChatGPT introduced is the ability to communicate with the system in a natural language. Prompt engineering is basically writing prompts like, how do I not get hacked? You know, based on your natural language, the system is able to give you answer in a natural language as well. So in traditional machine learning models, I would like to like give some use case as well. So imagine like a matching algorithm in a system where, let's say, candidates needs to be matched with the roles, just like in LinkedIn. You know how you get matched to certain jobs, you get the notification, some roles are open. So for a basic matching algorithm, would you want to go with generative AI model, or can you also stick with traditional machine learning system as well? Because it's so important, like, because AI is in the hype, everyone wants to use language models. We need to decide, like, is it really needed or not? Like, or what kind of model is required before even, you know, jumping into it. Now, through this image, just think about the output. If it's a natural language as an output, or a combination of image or natural language, then in that case, yes, you would need generative AI model. But if it's just simple, like straightforward matching algorithm, then it could be overkill to use a large language model for that. So that is one thing about traditional machine learning model and generative AI model. Now we need to differentiate about large language models and small language models, because all we have heard about is GPT, chat GPT is there. So these are, so you have seen the examples there. Chat GPT, Llama 3, Claude, these are all large language model. And the size of the model, they work with billions of parameter, and nowadays like it's trillions, it's not even in billions. But with the small language models, they work in thousands or millions level of parameter, and there's one recent release, 5.3 by Microsoft, which is proven to be more effective than using large language model. So it just depends on the context, right? Just because any startup or any company is using GPT, you don't need to do that. So we need to understand these things before we even, start working on it or start, going there. So as a developer, if your CTO comes up to you and talks about, we need to come up with these use case, then it's important to understand these concepts so you can say, I think, we need to first evaluate the model. We need to choose this model would fit our use case. So this, this table, you can refer to this later as well. I'll share a link to this presentation. So most of the thing that's here is the data requirement. LLMs, they work with like diverse data set, and it can be biased. So you might have noticed, how many of you have noticed like hallucination using ChatGPT? A lot, right? A lot. So it's because they are trained in billions of data, and you need to fine tune it if you want that to be working expected in your system. So in that case as well, you can look into, instead of like large language model, you can look at some small language model as well, which are like more focused data set and could be like domain specific as well. And it can save you from like lots of fine tuning. So most of the use case are, if you want to build a chatbot, if you want something to interact in a natural language and get the response, in similar way, usually go with large language model because they have a really good context. Example could be like code solving platform. But for small language model, you can use something like for text classification or for spam detection. So anything that gives an output as a classification, clustering, those could be done in a small data set as well. You don't necessarily need Llama 3 or GPT-4 to do that. And why is it important to understand now is because, okay, once you go with GPT-4, then to train that model for your use case, the main thing is the costing around it. You don't want your Google Cloud bill to go till like 10,000 in next month because you just missed on this particular thing, right? Fine tuning is really important. So these are, few of the things. With deployment as well, October this year, Apple is releasing new iOS version. So there they have used small language models, not the large language models. So that will also bring some change in the industry with the hype of LLMs. Now, talking about VertexAI, not many of you have heard of VertexAI, but it was launched in 2021 at Google I/O, and it's basically a machine learning platform that allows us to build, deploy, and manage our models. But recently, VertexAI has been very popular. One of the main reasons is because now they have this model garden functionality, which allows you to use models from other companies as well. So you can use Llama 3 through a single API, and you can work in VertexAI. You can fine tune the model. So previously it was just limited to Gemini, but now it gives us like opportunity to play with different small and large language models. So now we know what VertexAI is. Now we know what Gen AI is, what kind of language model should we need to consider when we think of a use case. So what is next? Like, how do we achieve this? With VertexAI, you get an option to use Gemini as your model, or you can choose any other foundation model like Claude, Llama 3, Albert, but there's like some differentiation between that as well. So for someone who is just starting out to learn about AI, I would suggest them to go with Gemini if they are working in VertexAI, just because it's like pre-deployed. Everything is within the same ecosystem. That's why it is like immediately accessible. You don't require like additional training for your model to train the Gemini model, and you don't need to deploy it. It's already in the same system. And especially like if in your company, if rest of your infrastructure like your EC2 storage, everything is with Google Cloud, then it just makes things easier for you to just have your model deploy and managed in Google Cloud as well. But at Uplift, we use Llama 3, but we can use foundational models through VertexAI as well, which is like a bit of additional work compared to if you go with Gemini. So it requires like manual import and setup. And the best thing is that still like you can fine tune it. So based on your requirement and use case, you can fine tune the model. That would require like custom deployment in VertexAI. It will require like management of your compute resource compared to if you use Gemini in VertexAI. So if anyone who is willing to just learn about the concept, it's better to go with Gemini. But if you are already a developer working with different large language model, then you can try other foundation models too. So in today's presentation, I will talk about how we can use Gemini model. I wanted to do with Llama 3, but it would require like all of you to be here with me for the next 2 hours. The organizer wouldn't allow me to do that, so I'll just stick with Gemini. And the process for deploying a model, or basically, you know, the end-to-end process is setting up the environment in VertexAI, choosing a model as per your use case, and preparing like data preparation, prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is just like asking questions to your model. And based on the result that you get from the model, you can fine tune, you can feed more data to your model, and you can change the output as you go. You'll see the difference. And yeah, once you analyze the model, then the next thing is deployment. How can you deploy it, and how can you integrate it with your existing platform? So for a use case, at Uplift, we work on end-to-end hiring process. So basically, as a candidate, you create a profile, and then you will get matched with businesses, and you go through the timesheet management till the payroll. Everything is managed within the system. Now, in our use case, in recruitment industry, most of the things still happen manually. Like over the call, you need to talk about your experience 3 times with 3 different person before you before you get hired. So we want to take away that manual and not fun part of the process. So that's why AI use cases are very helpful for the business side as well. Like we have functionalities where as a client, you can just enter like few keywords about the position that you want to hire for. Okay, I'm looking for a UI UX designer, 5 years experience, this background, and it would create like a good looking job description. So similar to profiles as well, candidate profile. There's a lot of things you can think for your existing platform, or if you're a student, if you want to do something new. I think we shouldn't wait for technology to provide everything for us, we can still pick up whatever information is there in the market. We can at least start with that. So I had someone coming over before this presentation asking, should I start learning AI? Because I don't see any jobs in AI yet. Yes, you won't see it yet. It's same with Facebook as well. So when Facebook was introduced, no one would have thought like, people from different age group and different dynamics would be using Facebook. It was only for college students, right? But over the time now, see how things have changed. So in tech, things do change really quickly. And with AI, though now it seems like, there's no positions for AI, but after 2 years, there may be like lots of position for AI. And if you've already started working on it now, then yeah, you are already ahead of lots of people. So yeah, I would like to show a demo for this. Can we please get connected to my laptop? So this is how it looks like in VertexAI. Basically, what you want to do is in your Google Cloud, just go and type VertexAI in the search bar, and you'll be able to see the dashboard here. So what I mentioned earlier about model garden is basically a garden of model where you can, look at different foundation models, fine-tunable models. So you'll see 3 things here. Foundation models, they are more like a pre-trained multitask model. We can customize this as per our needs. These models, they work with billions of parameters, so definitely the cost to tune these models would be expensive. But for your use case, if you want to go with like task-specific solution, so some of the examples are, if it's related to image classification, in those cases, you can look at these task-specific solutions rather than, before jumping into large language models and training them. So there are like 3 categories here. Now, the difference, I mentioned like 2 different process. If you choose Llama 3, then you would have to deploy first in VertexAI. So these are some of the additional steps you have to make when you work with another foundation model instead of Gemini. So for today, I'll just show how it will look like for Gemini 1.0 Pro. So when I click on fine tune here, let me go back before I do this. Model garden. So you can immediately start working with Gemini through prompt engineering. But if you want to fine tune the model per your specific need, because for most of us, we are not building another ChatGPT, right? We are just trying to integrate AI in our existing solution. So we do have like a solid use case for our platform, which would require like providing more information to the model so we can fine tune it. So let's start with fine tuning a model. So under the VertexAI Studio, you'll see language where you will be able to fine tune a model. And make sure you choose the correct region. So all the models will be based on the regions here. Now, to create a tuned model, I would just have to give a name to the model. I can select what kind of model I'm looking for. So for this case, it's Gemini 1.0. I can select the region. And for tuning the data set, what you can do is in your bucket, in your storage, you can
already upload your data set and you can pull it from there, or if it's existing in the cloud, then you can just give a URL here. So let me just quickly copy the URL. So this is from Google. Because fine tuning takes around like 1 to 2 hours. I don't want to spend that time now. So I've already tuned a model for today's example. Now, once you add your data set through here, you can start tuning the model. So this is how it would look like. But because I've already created a fine-tuned model called conversational tuning, what you'll see here is the details of the model, and you can test the model. So by testing the model, it takes you back to the prompt section. So everything is done through prompt here, unless you want to use API to work on this. But you can check everything through prompt, and if you're not happy with the response, because if someone is working in the medical industry and they want to build a use case for their medical purpose, you don't want your end users to have inaccurate result. You want to make sure that the result is 100% or 99% accurate before you start integrating with your platform. So you can go back and forth with the prompt engineering, and you can have like different models. You can select the models here. What you can also test is, based on the model, how your model is giving the output, and you can test that with other different models. So Gemini 1.5 Pro is the latest model by Google. So you can test with different models and see what kind of output is required. Now, I've already done this. If I go to model details, it will just show me more information of the model and how I can deploy the model to an endpoint. So, yeah. So now I've deployed this to an endpoint. There will be ID attached to this endpoint. What you need to do is you just need to call a REST API, that's all. When you call a REST API as a parameter, you need to pass the project ID and you need to pass the model ID. Based on that, you can start integrating the model into your existing system. So just to show you how this process looks like, you can create a new endpoint for your model, or you can even use your existing model here. So the region is auto-selected, and you can manage the access as well. So how you want your endpoint to be accessed. Do you want to make it private, or if you can leave it a standard serving through REST API, you can do that as well. These are some of the model setting, and there's model monitoring as well. So the additional cost are fine-tuning a model and model monitoring as well. If you want to monitor your model, then there will be additional cost associated with it. So before you start working on this, make sure like you already have a Google Cloud account with some credits, because fine-tuning a model, it like cost with certain sense, but yeah, it's good to have that in place. So I'll just quit it, and once the model is deployed, you can see the version details and everything else. So this is one way how you can test different models through VertexAI. But if you already do not have a Google account, or if you want to try it locally in your machine, there's Ollama as well. So which is something that our team started with before choosing any of the cloud provider. We worked with Ollama because it lets you get you up and running with like different large language model locally. Doesn't require any like a storage issue or any cost. So you can start with this. I've shared a link in another slide. We can go through that. So there's another functionality here called multimodal, which is recently released. So what's the difference between general model and multimodal is just the input. Previously, you might have noticed in ChatGPT as well, if you give text, then it will give you an output as a text. But now if you give image and video as well as text as an input, then it can give you output in the similar format, right? So with multimodal, you can do prompt design. So let me just quickly show you how it looks like. Basically for our use case, what we have done is, if we have gone through an interview process with someone, we have the recording of the interview and we have the candidate CV as well. Now through multimodal, what we can do is we can combine the video with the attachment, the CV of a candidate, and through the model it can give us output where we can ask the system to find out the discrepancies between what was there in the CV and how the actual interview went. So there's a lot of use case like this which can help us to determine, and there's no limitation in the input now. It's not just text-based, it supports image, video, and text as well. So anyone have any questions so far with VertexAI? Yes?
Thank you. So for the fine-tuning model, what does your input-output look like when you're fine-tuning? Can we see the text file that you loaded from GS util?
The format is actually JSON-L, so I'm not able to extract it and show it, but usually it's input and output. That's the only thing the fine-tuned model would read. So, and if you've tried this before, you cannot just try it with 2-3 data. It wouldn't give you the output. So make sure you have like 100+ records of input and output, and only when you do that, you'll be able to train the model. But basically, this model that I've used here, let me quickly find if I can show you. Yeah, so this is a data set. This is a conversation between a doctor, GP, and a patient. Basically, this is done to create a chatbot who acts like a GP. Now, you've seen here the input and output. There's 500 messages here and 4,82,000 characters. So basically, you need to provide lots of data to train your model, and it is associated with tokens as well, which gets associated with your credits. So you want to make sure that how many records do you want to have when you want to train the model.
Yeah, and you showed like an example where it's a text input, text output. Is there a way to have it as an unstructured input? Oh, sorry, structured input. Let's say if I have a table on BigQuery, can I add that as an input?
So how I showed here is just like a user-friendly way where you can add input and output. But then you can connect this through API. So you can get this connected with your existing database, Postgres, whatever, and you can pass that information from there. There's like a standard formats that you need to follow, and they only take the input as JSON-L format, so we need to make sure we have done the data conversion as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for the talk. I have a particular question about if you can go back to the last page about the GP example. So my question is that, so currently I'm an SRE, and currently I'm actually helping my team to build exactly that, so a chatbot. Based on we have our ideal input is to have a Confluence page documentation and also like for example, all this support chat that we have for our customer in our teams like that. I look into that particular data set, and then inside that, I believe is the conversations, right?
Yes.
My question is, I can understand how to change the team's message bit, because it's conversation into that. But then how about the Confluence documentation bit? We have quite a lot. And my ideal outcome is that for the customer to come, and then they would be able to ask this chatbot to, answer their questions. What's your advice on that? So from the documentation become a conversational JSON-L format. Yeah.
So usually most people, they start with just passing the data, because in your case, there's a good format of document in your Confluence, right? And you wouldn't need a lot of fine tuning for that, compared to if you're trying to build a GP chatbot, then that would be more diverse, because your data is kind of like a fixed data. You want to pull information from a limited source. So your model shouldn't be necessarily communicating with external sources and pulling information. It's related to your company. So in that case, you can start with connecting the data, and then as a test, you can do fine tuning. You don't need to necessarily invest a lot of time in fine tuning before. So you can, start with just connecting your existing database through Vertex API, and you'd be able to achieve that.
Thank you.
I saw one hand there. Yeah.
My question is regarding the poor data quality.
Yes.
The problem that I faced when developing predictive models was the poor data quality. And what are some of the preemptive measures that we can take regarding, the data quality, whether it be data cleaning and all those other things, to have, that good predictive model that we get. So my question is regarding the data quality and the preemptive measures that can be taken.
Yeah. So fine tuning is the best approach for ensuring that the data quality is strong, instead of just going with prompt engineering, or instead of just connecting your database, giving the user ability to do prompt. That is the basic step. But if you want to make sure that your user are getting correct information out of your model, then fine tuning is one approach. And while talking about fine tuning, I would like to touch upon on RAG as well. Are you familiar with RAG? Yes. So I wanted to talk about fine-tuning versus RAG in this presentation, and good that you brought up this. So basically the difference, I have one analogy to explain about RAG and fine-tuning. So think of a model as a student appearing in an open-ended exam. So how RAG works is, the student would go to the exam center. They would have number of textbook with themselves. Based on the question they get, before answering, they'll go through the textbook and they'll give us the answer, right? How fine-tuning works is, there's no open-ended exam. It's a close-ended exam. You memorize your textbook. You go to a certain exam where you have to give answer for a particular subject, and whatever is memorized in your brain, you just give answer based on that information, right? Now with RAG, it is connected with external sources as well. So based on your use case, eventually everything comes to your own use case. So if you have a fixed amount of data source, just like hers, it's a Confluence base, right? Now, we don't necessarily need RAG in that case, because we don't need to deal with latest information. But if you're building a model where you want your model to learn about new changes themselves and feed that into the system, then in that case, you would use RAG. So for you, just look at your use case and try to understand if fine-tuning works for you. If you're still not getting good result from fine-tuning, and if you feel like you need external knowledge to feed into your system, then in that case, you would use RAG.
thank you for the speech, so for the presentation. So my question is just a simple one. When you train the data and like, how do you fine tune it so that it does not involve any biases? Like when you, like as you said, like you'll be putting through an video as a data. So like when you put that through, so that uh, if the interviewee or the like who wants to get hired is speaking in a certain way, makes the bot more like aligned to hiring him, or like you reduce that biasness. How do you reduce that? That's my question.
Yes, yeah. So there's different ways as well. If you just look into Vertex AI, what I would suggest to you is just to start with basic prompt engineering. Yeah, my screen is sharing, right? Yeah, just to start with basic prompt engineering. If you ask a question here, you'll be able to improve the results based on, like, every data have its own weighting, right? So you can decrease the temperature. So just go through these things. What you'll understand is temperature controls the randomness in token selection. So how vast does the model reach to? You can filter all these things. You can filter biases as well. If there's like certain keywords that you don't want the model to select, then you can do that. There's different ways you can handle that to make sure that the output that you've got is not biased. Yes, as what you want. If you are Donald Trump, then you can make the model act in your behalf. Like there's a lot of thing you can do, and you must have noticed in Facebook and Twitter as well. There's algorithm behind it, right? What you see is based on what they want you to see. So similar way, you can train your model in that way, but bear in mind, be ethical how you train the model. So just like what we have already talked about, people in cybersecurity are really needed just so that good people can continue doing good. And yeah, hope like that answers your question. Okay, so most of the part about Vertex AI is almost covered. I can go back to my slides. Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Great presentation, and I'm sure one question. I said, just pick up the phone and call, and you said we're gonna reduce the number of calls you're gonna make. Is that a conflict there?
No, like even though whatever technology is there, there will always be human connection involved. That's not gonna go there.
Awesome.
But what we want to do is, like, before I got into recruitment industry, I used to hate recruiters. Like I used to like avoid recruiters at any cost. But now, like, I'm building platform so that it helps recruiter, because if you think, eventually they are also human. They don't want to bug 24/7, talk with you about your experience. And even it's difficult for them because they don't know what the role is about. They are not expert in that role, but they still have to interview you for that position. And for students who are like afraid of recruiters, just know that you would know more than a recruiter for a particular position. So there's no need to be like scared of the initial interview with a recruiter. And yeah, that's also something that I've noticed, like, after working in the recruitment field.
Awesome, thank you. So there's AI working in the background, plus, but please make that call, right?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Thank you.
So, as a takeaway from this presentation, I really wanted you all to understand generative AI. Basically, we have seen the hype. We have played with ChatGPT. And most of the people, they are still like confused about, they are kind of scared just with the term AI. So I wanted to clear up some concepts about that. And if you're working in any of the AI use case for your company, or if you haven't as well, I would suggest you to do that. Spend some time learning about building models, deploying them. You can think of so many other different use cases, especially if someone who don't know any programming yet as well. And if you really want to get into IT, I think this is the best time to start learning AI, because as I've said, like, there's no experts, there's no company who have proven to be expert. Everyone is learning, everyone is building something new, and it is in progress. So if you jump on something at this time, then it's gonna be easier compared to after 5-10 years. If you wanna start looking into model creation, then that would be like a different story. So the first thing you need to do is evaluate the model that you're gonna be after, and it is always inclined toward your use case. I've seen some startup who just use like Claude, Llama 3, because like everyone else are using, without even really necessarily knowing if they need that or not. And they see the cost, they see the time and resource that it takes, and then you have to go back through that process. So that's a really important decision to make. We have talked about VertexAI, how we can apply VertexAI in practical scenarios, and how we can build, train, and deploy models in VertexAI. In the last slide, there's a QR code where you can get access to this presentation. And in this exercise hyperlink, you'll be able to practice something. So there's something for you if you want to practice more in AI, and not just from the prompt engineering, through connecting through APIs as well. Yeah, you can experiment running LLMs using Ollama. So if you already do not have Google Cloud, or if your company is with like a different provider, I think it's the best approach. You can go with this, and then you can decide what cloud do you want to go for or not. Yeah. So yeah, this is the QR code if you want to scan. Yeah, saying that, thank you so much, everyone, and hopefully you've learned something new.